we are discussing about the OSI reference model in computer networks. Now here I am going to be write certain notes for OSI reference model and I will explain each and every point here. This is OSI reference model means the full form is Open System Interconnectivity Reference Model. Open System Interconnectivity. What do you meaning of the open system interconnectivity here means suppose we are going to be consider two or more systems. Here I am going to be explain. We are going to be consider these two systems. These two systems may have the different configurations. This is system 1 and this is system 2. That means the hardware capabilities of the system, operating system, and other parameters of the system is one type, and the hardware capabilities of the system and operating system and other of the system 2 is other type. Let us consider this is the Pentium system and this is the Windows operating system. This is the dual core processor, right? This may be Linux operating system. Even it is possible we are going to be connect these two systems by the communication network, either to transmission of the data or for the sharing of the resources. So the main objective of the OSI reference model is to seamless way of communication, seamless way of communication. That means we are establish the communication between the two systems without any hurdle or without any problems. So this is the main objective of the OSI reference model. After that, in 1984, in 1984, International Standard Organization ISO actually recognize the rules, regulations, and procedures requirements uh, for the OSA reference model are standardized. So, in some people may also call it as the OSA reference model as also ISO reference model. But ISO is the standard organization. That means it gives the certification to the procedures and algorithms followed by the OSI reference model, but the actual procedure name of the procedure is OSI, Open System Interconnectivity. This OSI system reference model actually represents the way how the two systems are communicate, the procedures, rules, regulations, requirements, whatnot, everything, right? So the rules, procedures, or software or something in OSI reference model is divided into the seven parts. Is divided into the seven parts. Here we are going to call it as a seven layers. Seven parts. Generally, we are going to be called as a seven layers. What are these seven layers means? Here the diagram is shown. This is the diagram actually. So physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. Please observe carefully. I am explaining from bottom to top. Physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. When we are studying or understanding the OSA reference model, you should be understand that is suppose let us consider this is the sender, this is the sender system, and this is the receiver system, right? So this system send the information and this system receives the information. Then we are going to consider that this is the bottom layer is the physical layer, the top layer is the application layer in both of the systems. So the top layer is the application layer and bottom layer is the physical layer. So where the user, that means that's actually the user interaction only with the application layer, where suppose either in the sender or in the receiver, right? The, at the sender side, the user applies his data or given his data or submits his data to the application layer, and one after another transactions are carried out on the data. The finally the data reach to the physical layer. This physical layer is responsible or take care of how to transmit the data over the channel, and then this physical layer is again in the receiver side, receives the data, and several other transactions, that means reverse transactions what are done in the sender side are done in the receiver side, and finally the application layer hands the data to the user or receiver in its understanding human understandable format. Okay friends, now I go to the uh, explain the each and every layer. So I am consider, now I am here, I am at the receiver side. So I am going to be explain in bottom of fashion. First physical layer, the next one data link layer, the next one network layer, and so on. In this way I am going to be explain. So let us consider the first layer I am going to be consider is the physical layer. What actually the physical layer do? We can observe that only the physical layer has the actual physical communication. So here we can observe that actually this physical layer only consisting the interconnection of the physical media. So the physical layer is take care of how the data is transmitted over the bits over in form of the bits over the channel. So I am going to write here how what is the responsibility of the physical layer. That is synchronize. For the first one is the synchronization of the bits. What do you mean by the synchronization of the bits? That is when actually the sender sends, at the time the receiver receives the data. When the time of the sender sends, at the same time the receiver receives the data. This is synchronization. Enable modulation. What do you mean by the modulation? Modulation means over the channel or over the media, how we are going to be combined two or more signals for sending the data from sender to receiver. Because here, for our convenience, we are considering only the sender and receiver, two systems. Sometimes let us consider this is the sender and this is the receiver, but there is not the sender and receiver. Suppose there are number of systems within the network. Suppose from this system, this is the source, or to this system, so these are the receivers. So from any one system to any one system, only one physical media is available in between these two. Number of systems are simultaneously or at a time sending the data. So their signals are combined and transmitted. How these signals are combined? This is decided by the modulation. And the third responsibility of the physical layer is defines the data rate. That means how much data is sending per second. Suppose 30 bits or 40 bits of data is sending. For our convenience, I simply write the bits. Actually, 1 Mbps, megabits per second, like that. So, and also the physical layer responsible, the topology. We are already discussing that the topology means the physical arrangement of the nodes within the network. That means how physically we are going to be place the nodes which are in a communication, right? So it also decide the transmission type, that is simplex, duplex or off duplex. That means the data is transmitted only in one direction at a time, or both of the directions simultaneously, or both of the directions at the time t. సో ఒకేసారి సారీ ఒక టైంలో డేటా ఒక డైరెక్షన్లోనే వెళ్ళాలా, ముందు ఒక డైరెక్షన్లో వెళ్ళి తర్వాత ఇంకో డైరెక్షన్లో వెళ్ళాలా, లేకపోతే ఒకే టైంలో లైట్ బోత్ డైరెక్షన్స్ లో కూడా వెళ్ళాలా అనేదాన్ని ఈ ఫిజికల్ లేయర్ డిసైడ్ చేస్తుంది. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ద రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ ఆఫ్ ది ఫిజికల్ లేయర్. సెకండ్ వన్, we come to the data link layer. This is the very crucial layer because, right, the data link layer is receiving the data from the network layer, from the above layer. Actually, this is the second layer I am going to be called It is this the above layer is the third layer. The network layer is the third layer. The data link layer transmit the data between the two systems consisting of the same architecture over the network. రైట్ నెట్వర్క్లో ఉన్న రెండు సిస్టమ్స్ ఒకే రకమైన ప్రొసీజర్స్ని ఫాలో అవుతూ ఉంటే వాటి మధ్య డేటాని పంపటానికి ట్రై చేస్తుంది. రైట్ ప్రొసీజర్స్ ఫాలో అయ్యేటట్లు కూడా ఇదే చేస్తుంది. ఈ డేటా లింక్ లేయరు మళ్ళీ రెండు పార్ట్ల కింద విడిపోతుంది. రైట్ ద లోయర్ పార్ట్ ఈజ్ నోన్ యాజ్ ది లాజికల్ లింక్ కంట్రోల్. ద హయ్యర్ సారీ the lower part is known as the medium access control. The higher part is known as the logical link control. రైట్ ఈ ఈ డేటా లేయర్లో మళ్ళీ రెండు పార్ట్లు ఉన్నాయి. లాజికల్ లింక్ మీడియం యాక్సెస్ కంట్రోల్ అండ్ లాజికల్ లింక్ కంట్రోల్. వాట్ ఈస్ ద రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ ఆఫ్ ది medium access control? The medium access control layer encapsulate the data frames transmitted through the network connecting the media such as wires and cables. సో ఈ వైర్ మీద వెళ్ళే డేటాని ఈ వైర్ని ఎలా వాడాలి, ఎంతసేపు వాడాలి, ఎప్పుడు వాడాలి, ఎంత కెపాసిటీలో వాడాలి, ఈ వైర్ మీద ఎంత కెపాసిటీ ఆఫ్ డేటా వెళ్తుంది అనే దాన్ని మీడియం యాక్సెస్ కంట్రోల్ లేయరు డిసైడ్ చేస్తుంది. ద లాజికల్ లింక్ కంట్రోల్ says that the connectivity between the two systems, right? How the connection is established, how much after that, after completion of the transmission, how to release the connection. Suppose the connection is terminated డ్యూరింగ్ ది ట్రాన్స్మిషన్. ఒకవేళ కనెక్షన్ కనుక డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయితే ట్రాన్స్మిట్ అయ్యేటప్పుడు హౌ టు రీఎస్టాబ్లిష్ ద కనెక్షన్, రైట్, హౌ టు రీట్రాన్స్మిట్ ద డేటా అనే దాన్ని ఈ లాజికల్ లింక్ కంట్రోల్ డిసైడ్ చేస్తుంది. రైట్ దిస్ ఈస్ ద సెకండ్ లేయర్. రైట్ హియర్ వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి గెటింగ్ ద డేటా ఫ్రమ్ ద నెట్వర్క్ లేయర్ and we are going to be divide the data, suppose the huge data into the packets, and that means small parts. Each and every part is known as the packet in the data link layer. Next one is the next higher layer is the network layer. The network layer, what is the responsibility of the network layer? The network layer responsibility is actually to establish the communication between the several nodes. రైట్ నెట్వర్క్లో అన్ని సిస్టమ్స్ కనెక్ట్ అయి ఉండేటట్లు చూడటము, వాటి మధ్య డేటాని ఏ పాత్ ద్వారా ఇన్ విచ్ పాత్ వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి సెండ్ ద డేటా. సపోజ్ ఫ్రమ్ 1 to 6, let us consider, either we are going to send the data in this path or we are going to be send the data in this path. Right, the network layer, if this is the third layer, also receives the data from the above layer, that means from the transport layer, and it also divide into the some other small parts, that means it receives the segments, it is the data and it divide into the segments. In network layer, the data is known as the segments. The segments are divided into the data link layer, that means in layer 2, again into the small parts. Here in data link layer we call the data as the packets. Right, here we observe that handles the routing functionality. That means the main objective of the network layer is establishing a network and transmit the data. That means in which path we are going to be send the data over the network. Right, the next one is the transport layer. Right, the transport layer, small segment. The transport layer is done the flow control and error control, the main functions of the transport layer. The transport layer receives the data from the above layer, session layer, layer 5. From the session layer, it receives the data transport layer, and then it is then transfer the data to the below layers at the center side. At the center side, it is sent to the below layer, that is to the network layer. And flow control, that means how many bits will be transmitted per second flow. And error control, suppose the data is changed over the network, how to recover the data. Suppose the data is lost, how we are going to be recover the data. These items are discussed by the responsibility by the transport layer. In general, the transport layer is known as the reliable transmission layer because it follows the connection oriented protocols. Each and every layer has certain protocols. What do you mean by the protocol? Means unavoidable rule. This rule should be followed. The next one is the session layer. So it established the sessions. Session means timestamp. That means session means how much time these two systems are interconnected. For a, for example, dear students, suppose how much time the networks class will be take care, right? Suppose our timetable from morning to evening is divided into the suppose subject 1 from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, one subject from 10 to 11 o'clock, second subject from 11 to 12 o'clock, the another subject from 12 to 1 p.m. Suppose lunch, like that. That's the timetable, like the timetable. So the time is divided. In the same manner, the session layer establish the communication sessions. That means how much time the sender and the receiver are in communication to transfer the data, right? It is also take care of how to utilize the other computing resources. The next one is the presentation layer, right? This presentation layer may also known as the syntax layer or translation layer. Actually, suppose in the receiver side, suppose especially in the receiver side, for ease of understanding, this is the presentation layer, and above one is the application layer. Actually, so in the as a sender side, the application layer sends the data to the presentation layer. Receiver side, the presentation layer send the data to the application layer. So at the sender side, the application layer uh, gives the data to the presentation layer. The presentation layer translates the data either in ones and zeros format, in network understandable format, and given to the below layers. In the receiver side, the presentation layer receives the data from the below layers, which is in the network understandable format, and again it is going to be converted into the moreover user understandable format and given to the application layer. So it try to present the data in human understandable format versus to network understandable format. Hence we are going to call it as a translation layer or syntax layer. The finally the application layer, what actually only if in this application layer the user interact with the system. Generally the user submit different formats of the data. Suppose text data, that means images, audio files, and video files, and several types of the data to the application layer for successful transmission from one system to another system. This application layer consisting of several applications or programs to accept different formats or different types of the user data. For example, we are going to be send the SMS, simple messages, SMS, right? SMS. It is one kind of the application or one kind of the program which is in the application layer. Suppose we are sending the emails, so that is the other kind of the program which is in the application layer. Let us consider actually, so this is the application layer. So we send the SMS. This is the one kind of the program, and the mails. This is the other kind of the program. And we are going to be accessing some websites. The websites the data in the HTTP higher text formats. So our to access the website we are using the some browsers. That means Google Chrome, Firefox, like that. Those software also be in the application layer. So the application layer accept the uh, user data and then transfer to the presentation layer to convert into the network understandable form. Otherwise, at the receiver side, it take the network understandable form of the data from the presentation layer and it is present to the user. So the user can interact with the application layer. This is about the OSI reference model. Okay, friends, I hope you can understand this one. Thank you.